Yes, we're live.
All right, great.
So, hi, folks. Tonight, Chris, we only have for a couple of minutes because he's on a workshop. So, I'm going to cut right to the chase. We're talking about Comet Neowise. Chris, take it away.
Yeah, so, this is our second workshop in a row on the coast of Maine. We were in mid-coast Maine last week, and we just got back from Monhegan Island, and we're in Acadia National Park right now. I'm right at the edge of the park. You can see Bar Harbor behind me. The sun's just setting. It's gorgeous. It's just gorgeous. And something that's been really exciting, both in last week's workshop and this week's, is we've got Comet Neowise. So, it's a little crazy with the weather in New England. They say up here the famous phrase is, if it's New England, if you don't like the weather, wait 5 minutes. And it's exactly what it's been like. So there's been days we thought it was going to rain at night and it was beautiful. And then other nights when it was supposed to be clear and we've got fog. But we've had enough clear nights to get enough comet photos that it's just been a blast. It's like for a week and a half now, it's just been chasing the comet at night, whether it's shooting it over a lighthouse or shooting it over the village on Monhegan Island. And tonight, it looks nice and clear. We've scouted it out. Lance and I were scouting a little earlier, and it looks like we can get it over Jordan Pond. With the north and south bubble at the end of the pond. It's like one of the iconic scenes in Acadia. And fingers crossed, hoping we can get the comet right over that.
We're rooting for you.
Thanks. It's exciting.
So you wrote a really great blog post. I'll go through it with people when you have to drop off. But
okay.
What are your top 3 suggestions?
Oh, gosh. Well, you have to look for it. It sounds obvious that, of course, you got to see what you're shooting, but you really need to focus on that. Like find a spot where you can get a northwest view, and say like halfway through twilight, maybe like halfway through nautical twilight is when you first might start being able to see it. And if you can see the Big Dipper, then it should be right underneath that. And if you can't see it with your naked eye, take a few photos and zoom in on your LCD to try to find it. And that's where you'll spot it. Because it's the kind of thing that once you know where it is, then you know where it is. You're not going to lose it again, but it can be a little tricky finding it at first. Let's see. Number 2, for exposure, treat it like a star exposure. So, whether you like to use the 400 rule or if you like to use the NPF rule to get a really precise exposure, whatever you do to freeze stars, do the same thing to freeze the comet. Now, you do have a little bit of wiggle room with the comet because it's kind of fuzzy anyway. But if you go over your sharp star shutter speed, then the comet might still look okay, but all the stars surrounding it are going to start to trail. So stick with it, whatever shutter speed you need to freeze the stars, and your comet will look good too. And then number 3, I'd say find a foreground. Like, it can be really tempting to get out there and be like, oh, there's this cool thing in the sky and I'm going to shoot that. But the better photo is if you can find a landscape or a rural scene or something to put them in. Like, come up with a good photo, a composition that's good without the comet. And then when you include the comet, it's going to be even better.
Those are great tips. You got to have context, right?
Yes, you got it. Yeah. So that's where you get the killer shot, right? Get a photo with the comet in it, something that looks good without it, and then the comet's just going to make it sing.
Right. This is Astro Landscape photography, not astrophotography.
Exactly. Yeah. And I've seen some cool photos of just the comet itself. Like you can do a good exposure and get you see that the comet has 2 tails, and I forget exactly what the science is behind that. One has to do with ions and the other one has to do with ice, I think. So, that does look cool. And by all means, if that's your thing, go for it. But, we're usually doing landscape photography at night, the Astro Landscape, and having the comet up there it's just really cool. I got to say, this is just some of the most fun I've ever had shooting at night. I can see that up there and just spend a couple of hours trying to figure out how to work with it. It's so cool.
That's great. What's the most surprising thing about chasing this comet?
Oh, gosh. The most surprising thing.
My question, obviously.
The question. let me rephrase it a little bit. Like, what part do I like the most? And that's how much everybody's really into it. You know, like, it was fun for us just to spot it. But then, you know, during the first week, the first workshop last week, it was fun to spot, people shot it and all that. But the second week, we already knew. Like, you know, we knew where to find it. We knew what to do with it. And we told everybody. So the second group was kind of prepped for it. And I remember we were up at the Monhegan House, at the Monhegan Island Lighthouse, which is up on a hill. It's on the top of the island. And Lance and I told everybody we'd meet them up there at 8:30. And so, you know, at 8:30, we come up on top of the hill and we walk around. It's sort of like a campus of buildings up there. It's a really cool spot to shoot. And we come around the corner, sort of into that campus of the buildings, and everybody was set up pointing northwest. It was like everybody beat us there, and everybody wanted the Comet shot, and everybody knew which direction to face, and they were just there. So like we walked into this wall of photographers who as a team had figured out exactly what to do. And it was so much fun because everybody was so into it. And like they didn't even bother shooting while we were waiting for the Comet because everybody was so excited about that. And people were talking to each other and kind of getting to know each other, and just waited for that Comet to show up. And then everybody was just clicking away all night. In fact, there was one woman who had a shot lined up. It was really good composition with the Comet sort of coming between two buildings, and there was this old whaling boat in the foreground, and she didn't quite get it because there were just enough clouds. Like you could see the Comet, but it didn't look as cool as she knew it could. And then she was back there the next night. Like she said, you know, we were shooting somewhere else. And she was like, do you mind if I walk up to the lighthouse and do that shot? And I was like, no, by all means. So, you know, so excited to get the shot she had in mind. And that's just what like everybody's been like. It's just so much fun to shoot this.
So great to hear it. Well, I'm glad you guys have a couple more lights to take a crack at it.
Yeah. So tonight's supposed to be nice and clear. We're supposed to get maybe some rain tomorrow and maybe some rain Thursday for the last night of the workshop, which the good news is there's so much cool stuff to shoot here on a wet or a foggy night. But this might be the last shot we have at the Comet. So we're getting down to Jordan Pond and doing it.
Good luck.
That said, yeah, I got like 1 minute left.
Okay.
So what about you? Can you get out and Catskill and shoot? Is it dark enough there?
I went out last night. It was a new moon, and I was facing north away from the heart of the northern Catskills, I guess towards Great Barrington and stuff. And there's more light pollution than I expected over there, northwest towards Albany too. So, so I had the mountains at behind me. I had actually the beautiful galactic core behind me, and then I got to shoot it there. So I went out and I shot it with every lens at every shutter speed. I had a good 2 hours just to hang out with the Comet last night and get to know it.
Cool. Good. Yeah, I don't know how much light pollution would ruin the Comet shot, but you know, I would say for anybody who can't get away from the city, just go out there and point the lens up and see what you get. You know, because if you can get exposure where you're getting faint stars, then you should definitely be able to get the Comet.
Agreed. Yeah, it's brighter than I imagined, and I remember seeing Hale Bopp as a kid.
Yeah, it's definitely cool. All right, Matt, good to chat with you.
Good to chat. Have fun tonight. Say hi to everybody.
Thanks.
I guess that's goodbye. Hey, there's Lance. What's going on? Yeah. Social distance, guys. Social distance.
Yeah, we're really social distancing here. Spending 2 weeks together in tight quarters. Hopefully we'll have some Jordan Pond Comet photos to share on Instagram Thursday. All right. Great. Good night, everybody.
Good night, guys. Good luck.
Thanks.
Photobomb. So yeah, all right. All right. So that was our little photobomb from the author of the blog post that we're talking about tonight. I just wanted to check in. I see Donald and Hadley and Erica and Dan and Eunice. Thanks for checking in the comments. If anybody else is here, do us a favor, like hit the like button, leave a comment in the regular places and stuff. We're so grateful. I know we took 2 weeks off. We're glad to be back on the live stream and to share our knowledge with you. So I am going to share a little bit of Chris's blog post. I feel weird presenting somebody else's work. However, this is what we got to do because, this is where we are. We have 3 people out on workshops, and I'm one of the guys at home. So they're spending 2 weeks back-to-back workshops up in Maine. So they were lucky enough to plan their workshop for the unplanned comet of Neowise. And this blog post is all about choosing to make it the priority, because sometimes you can't plan for all of the things that you'd expect to happen, right? Learning about it and then coming around and saying, oh gosh, what are we going to do about this? So there you go. You get to one of the things he was talking about is putting the comet in an ideal placement and making this astro landscape. So in this case, they got to use one of these beautiful a lighthouse keeper's quarters on Monhegan Island. So he used the D5 with the 14 to 24, and he lit it with the Luxley Viola, 25 seconds long, f3.5 ISO 6400. This is a great example. This is 25 seconds long at 14 millimeters, and you can see that the stars look like star points. So you got a nice tail on the comet there, and you can see the other tail coming up almost vertically there. This is fantastic. Seeing it, I saw it for the first time last night, and I'll show you guys what I saw too. But let's talk about how you find it first. Essentially, if you know how to find the Big Dipper, which you should, because you're always looking for Polaris, excuse me, then you know how to find Comet Neowise. These last days that it's available, which is basically through the 26th, you can see it's going to be going underneath the Big Dipper this whole time. Pardon me for a moment. Water. We love it. So it's going to be climbing higher in the sky each night. And it's also going to be moving more to the west underneath the arm of the Big Dipper, the ladle. So this is a northern hemisphere kind of thing. I would suggest dropping by our blog post at nationalparksatnight.com and looking at this illustration here. Also note that it's going to drop down to the right throughout the evening. So it's going to start high, but then it's going to rotate downwards and to the right throughout the evening. So it's pretty easy to find, folks, and it is definitely bright enough to see with the naked eye. That's what I found last night. If you're using a star finder app, this is Sky Guide that Chris showed us here. Is going to show you where the comet will be in relation to other stars in the sky. But honestly, just look below the cup of the Big Dipper and you're going to find it if it's visible in your area. If not, like Chris suggested, start taking pictures, do your star point pictures. So how long is it going to be visible? Well, until the end of the July is what they're trying to say right now. The best that I saw was July 26th. So who knows until it's gone. It's here. So shoot every night you can. I've had some cloudy nights, especially near the horizon, and therefore it interfered with me getting out there and being able to actually do something with it. So I think the rest of this week, it's shoot, shoot, shoot as much as you can. As soon as it gets dark, or get out there during twilight, get your lens open. So what are we going to do once we're there? Well, as Chris said, star points. So let's start talking about this. We suggest the 400 rule, which is 400 divided by your focal length, or the MPF rule, which is easy to calculate using photo pills. I used the MPF rule all of last night, but let's look at Chris's illustration here. So with a 200 millimeter lens, if you were to zoom in on it, that's 15 seconds for a nice exposure, right? But at 2 seconds, the stars are star points. And of course, you have a different quality issue. You can have a lower ISO and have a creamier composition this way. But notice that the stars, they start to trail a little bit there, right? But at star points, it's competing less with the motion of the comet. So I agree with Chris. My recommendation would also be to go for star points. And if you wanted to, take 20 pictures with 1 second intervals and then get into Star Landscape Stacker on the Mac or Sequator on a Windows machine. And I can show you examples of that in a moment, to make those high ISO shots for star points turn into something that looks much more lower ISO, higher quality. But not everybody's going to be taking a photograph with a 200 millimeter lens, which I did last night. My MPF said 1.6 seconds, and because of the intervalometer I used, I could do that. So I did that. Yeah. So I also shot some longer comet trails, which I'm going to show you, where the head of the comet turns into a star trail and the tail just gets nice and soft. That's an interesting creative choice. So lenses, what are you going to choose for lenses? Well, let's talk about that. Your lenses, you might want to choose something that includes some foreground and the sky. That's what most of us do here when we're shooting out in the national parks, because why go someplace if you're just going to shoot the sky? You can build yourself an observatory, right? And just go someplace dark. So I shot with a 15 millimeter lens last night, and a 20 and a 35 and a 50 and a 100 millimeter and a 200 millimeter. I wanted to see what all of them looked like. And I got to work my way through all of the lenses. And I got to say, the 15 millimeter made me very happy because it gave me a sense of scale. And it also, the Comet is pretty large within that 15 millimeter range. So the 15 to 35, I think, is pretty great. The 50 looked really good, but I didn't like the coma that I had in my 50 millimeter lens, and I never really noticed it before. So maybe it took a hit. But what you're going to do is, the longer your focal length is, the shorter your exposure is going to be. So balance that with what a good exposure will be. So here we're talking about composition. A very wide lens in this exposure that I'm going to share with you from the blog post turned out to be an extraordinary choice, because that negative space above the fence turned into the comet turned into a literal arrow pointing to the fence, which leads you up here to the lighthouse and lets you mosey around the image and come back and leads you back in. So there was a deliberate choice on the photographer's part to do that, to place the comet there. And again, because it gets lower as the night goes on, you'd have to make sure you do this like kind of right after dusk to get it, depending on the night that you're shooting. Earlier in Neowise, you had to get up just before dawn to shoot it. Now we're in that just after dark phase, which is wonderful. So you can also composite. That's right. That is another way you could do. You could shoot a longer lens and get yourself a nice exposure of it, and then put it in at the same relative size, or play with it and make it a little bit of fantasy. We at NPAN prefer more natural looking compositions, and we would probably propose that you make it look normal, but you could put a higher quality Comet in there if you wanted to. And then there's, like I mentioned before, you can stack. So if you're shooting a high ISO, which I did, I shot ISO 12,800 last night, and I stacked up like 20 pictures in a row at 12,800, and I made a much higher quality image from those 20 image stacks. And then there's the Sky Tracker, which I hope to get out and try tonight or in the next couple of nights. But I do have a lot of clouds and rain predicted for the rest of the comet's trajectory through our area. But we'll see. I have one of these star trackers, the Skywatcher, to test, the Skywatcher. So that allows you to take the one that I have, 100-second exposure. So that's basically ISO 100 at 100 seconds, highest quality, and it just follows. It counteracts against the rotation of the Earth, so everything remains still. White balance is crucial. Right now we're in a new moon, so I chose 3800 because the galactic core was near it or around the other side of the sky, but it looked good. But I also had a lot of light pollution on the horizon, which I'll show you. Now the moon is not going to crash the party until later in the week. You're going to get some beautiful illumination, but it's also going to fight against the sky, right? So think about when the moon's coming up and how much it's going to fight against the visibility of the comet. So we talked about finding a foreground too, and thanks to Chris to going through the Herculean efforts of putting together a blog post on a topic that's happening right now in the middle of a workshop. and let's just say challenging circumstances that we have right now. So my hat is off to Chris. If I were wearing one, I would take it off and give it to him. I'll take my headphones off instead. Chris, great job, man. Now I'd like to share with you guys what I worked on last night, and then we can answer some questions. So here's my desktop. We're going to share it, right? We'll make all this other stuff go away. We'll get this out of the screen and move that out of the screen. All right. So I have prepared some stuff for you guys. Let's just pull up all the 5-star images, right? I wanted to show you guys the difference between the star stacks. So let's just switch these out. So you can see by the file names here, the one on the left was the original image. The one on the right is the Starry Landscape Stacker image that I did. And these were ISO 3200, and they're shot with a 50mm lens at 5 seconds, which is the NPF rule. So let's just get tight and zoom in here, right? So if we look at it, we'll look into the areas where there's a gradient. You can see that there is some noise here. And over on the right-hand image, it's very creamy. So this is a result of stacking 15, 17 images with Starry Landscape Stacker. And then you take a look at the Comet itself and you see how creamy it is versus the noise in there. So there is a definite advantage to choosing to run a stack. If you can get one sharp image, you can get 20 sharp images. So just do it. You get one good image, set your intervalometer to take 20 of them, and then move on. Especially at this short of an, it's 5 seconds times 20. Are you really wasting your time to get this much more of a quality image? No, you're not. So I definitely vote for using Starry Landscape Stacker. The thing that I don't like about what I discovered, and I mentioned before, is look at all those beautiful seagulls down there. Those aren't seagulls, that's coma. So my 50mm lens might need a little TLC. Yeah, so that's that. So let's take another look. This is with the 100mm lens, and I'm just going to show you guys what I found. And this is 6400, right? And this one is the Starry Landscape Stacker version, where we have minimum horizon noise. So I'm going to stack them up side by side again and show you in compare mode. So you could tell the one on the left has ISO 6400, right? So if we zoom in on this area, immediately you can see that when I try and process this one to a way that I like it to look, there's a lot of undesirable noise. But if you look over to the right, it looks like it was shot at ISO 100. And that is just extraordinary, is it not? So again, another vote in favor of taking your 10 to 20 shots with Starry Landscape Stacker or Sequator to process them later. And then you can have a wonderful thing to expose and, you know, yeah. So let's see what else we have here. Oh, so I noticed something else too while I was processing, and I'm going to show you the comparison of these two. There was a max value and a minimum horizon noise option. And this might not be the same image. It isn't. There we go. Here we go. And I saw that the max value one just made the background look overall more pleasing, and it gave me a better contrast throughout, and there's a nice beautiful blue sky. So while you're doing your processing with Starry Landscape Stacker, during that last screen where you're saving it, go through the other options and look at the preview and see if one of those other options that you might not normally do gives you a desirable processing effect. I told you guys that there was this is what happened when I turned around. This is the galactic core. I had a 100mm lens on, and I was just like, oh, I'm going to shoot that. I don't think I've ever taken a picture of the galactic core that looks like this, much less in my own backyard. 20 minutes away from my house. So shooting on the new moon, I was delighted to see this. And this is not with stacking. This is just one straight shot. But that's not what we're here to talk about. So here is what the 15 millimeter lens looked like. So one of our favorite focal lengths for Astro Landscape. And you could see with a little bit of zoom in, it's obvious that there's something special going on in the sky. And even at regular size, you're going to see that there's a comet in there. And there's not a lot of post-processing done here. What I did was pretty simple, and I'll walk you through it. My color temperature is down around 3100. I did take the eyedropper and I put it, I think I put it like right in here. No, I didn't do that. But that also looks nice, right? And that I didn't play with the exposure. What I did was I brought up my whites, brought up my shadows, brought down my highlights, and brought down my blacks. And it started like this and it ended like that, just a little bit crispier. Let me give you a different view of that. So this is where it started and this is where it ended. Pretty easy edit on this. This is another one where it was the beginning of my sequence. I wish I had taken 10 or 15 shots of this to stack also. I just wanted to get to other lenses, so I didn't think to put that into my workflow yet. So yeah, I guess what I'm trying to say to you guys is I agree with everything Chris said. And I also wanted to add this one thing. Let me find it for you. You might have to go to all pictures to see it. Might not have gotten into this yet. You might want to consider shooting a pano too. Last night I did something I don't normally do. Instead of tipping my lens forward so everything was dead level, I kept just a stripe along the bottom edge of landscape, and it was a 15 millimeter. So I'd say there's 10-20% of landscape at the bottom. And then I stitched it. And I didn't expect this to work. Only one of the three methods worked. Yet I was still able to get a Milky Way arch. This is just around midnight, plus the comet. And the comet seems to bend at the same angle as the arch because of the sequence. So that was something, just kismet. I didn't expect that to happen. This is another placement opportunity where I didn't have a lot of interesting foreground, but I did have good landscape shapes and some, I guess it turned out to be pretty beautiful light pollution down there in the valley, the Hudson Valley there. So that is that. Those are all the things that I have to share that I did last night. And I might want to leave a little room to get out tonight if it's still clear. I can't tell because I'm in the studio if there's clouds outside, but I'm going to go pop my head out soon. So what I want to do now is I'm going to take a look at the chat. I see a lot of friendly names out there. I saw Katrina also showed up too. We missed you guys. We can't wait to spend some more time with you soon. Thank you, Sue. And we hope that you guys hang up now and get off of this live stream and go out and do some shooting, catch that comet while you can. But first, any questions? And I'm going to take a second to say we would love to see what you have to share. I think we already posted this on our social, but please let us know if you want to share it by tagging us on Instagram. We're at National Parks at Night. We would love to see your Comet Neowise images. And we appreciate you even considering listening to us. And we hope that you have better success than we have. Not saying we didn't have any, but we want you to have even more success than we do doing this. So yeah, close your laptops, grab your camera, get out there, and let's see what we can do to capture this very, very special astronomical event. We appreciate you. Have a wonderful night. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button, the like button. We really appreciate it. It helps us on YouTube. And until next time, we're going to say adieu. We'll see you tomorrow on Instagram Live. Gabe is going to be chatting with a bunch of people about their experiences with Comet Neowise. Until then, seize the night. Good night, folks.